Magandang buhay everyone! I'd like to wish you all a good life, or as a Filipino would say, live the good life. Anyway, let's hear with my group mates that will discuss the political and labor law. But first, let me introduce to you the Tourism Act of 2009. The Department of Tourism commemorates the 10th year since Republic Act 9593, or better known as Tourism Act of 2009. It was enacted on May 12, 2009 by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo in Cebu City. It aims to establish tourism as one of the nation's principal instruments of growth through an action plan developed under RA 9593. The state seeks to develop Philippine tourism intended for the Filipino people, preserving and promoting their heritage, national identity, and sense of unity, to promote an eco-friendly and socially equitable for local communities. National and local government shall adopt and implement national action plans and encourage programs and activities that promote tourism awareness, preserve the country's diverse culture. Did you know that the Tourism Act helps to support the establishment of tourism enterprises zones or TEZs? A tourism enterprise within a TEZ for 10 years, this is eligible for incentives under Section 85 of the law, which intends to promote investments in sustainable tourism development. These incentives include income tax holidays, 5% gross income taxation, and full exemption from all the taxes, as well as the exemption from tariffs and duties on transportation and spare parts. However, TIEZA OIC Attorney Joy Belhuitan said that the agency was only able to grant these mandate incentives in 2016. And our next reporter will tackle about the DOT agencies.
Of Tourism is the executive department of the Philippine government responsible for the regulation of the Philippine tourism industry and the promotion of the Philippines as a tourist destination. It is mandated to encourage, promote, and develop tourism as a major socio-economic activity to generate foreign currency and local employment, and to spread the benefits of tourism to a wider segment of the population with the support, assistance, and cooperation of both public and private sectors. Did you know that the Department of Tourism logo, represented by a shell, depicts the Philippines as the Pearl of the Orient? The shell has 13 vertical lines, representing the 13 regions of the country, where unique and beautiful destinations await foreign and local tourists. The curved line at the bottom of the shell symbolizes the smiling face of Filipinos who are known for their warmth and hospitality. The Duty Free Philippines authorized the Department of Tourism through the Philippine Tourism Authority to establish and operate a duty and tax-free merchandising system in the Philippines for the purpose of augmenting service facilities for tourists and generating foreign exchange and revenue for the government. Duty Free Philippines is committed to make duty and tax-free goods and local goods available to international travelers and balikbayans by operating retail outlets in international points of entry and other major tourism areas.
Now let's move on to TIEZA. Pursuant to Presidential Decree number 189, the Philippine Tourism Authority was created in 1973 together with the Department of Tourism. The Tourism Infrastructure Enterprise Zone Authority, or also known as TIEZA, is a government-owned and controlled corporation. Attached to the Department of Tourism, it was created by virtue of Republic Act number 9593, otherwise known as Tourism Act of 2009. TIEZA main tasks include building tourism infrastructure, designation, and regulation and supervision of tourism enterprise zone operation, and management of TIEZA's asset, and the collection of the Philippine travel tax. Did you know that travel tax collection share of TIEZA fuels the priority tourism project, activities, and program which is synced with the Philippine Development Plan and the National Tourism Development Plan? And among this establishment that TIEZA manages and operates are the following, such as Banawi Hotel and Youth and Hostel, Club Intramuros Golf Course, Rizal Lights and Sound Museum, Balikasag Island Dive Resort, Garden of Malasag Mountain Resort, and last but not the least is the Zamboanga Golf Course and Beach Park. Next is the Philippine Retirement Authority, by virtue of its Charter Executive Order 1037, is mandated to develop and promote the Philippines as a retirement haven as a means of accelerating the social and economic development of the country, strengthening its foreign exchange position, at the same time providing further best quality of life to the targeted retirees in most attractive package. Did you know that in order for you to be part of this, the principal applicant must be foreign national or former Filipino citizen who are at least 50 years old? Dependent spouse may be legally married to the principal retiree. And if the principal retiree is not married, the children must be legitimate or legally adopted by the principal retiree and below 21 years old upon joining the program. Additionally, they can also enjoy some benefits such as indefinite stay with multiple entry and exit privileges, discount privileges from PRA accredited merchant partners, free assistance in transacting with other government agency, and the entitlement to PhilHealth benefits and privileges. And the next reporter will discuss the Intramuros Administration and the Philippine Commission on Sports Scuba Diving.
Intramuros Administration is a national government agency attached to the Department of Tourism of the Philippines. Under Presidential Decree Number 1616, IA is responsible for the orderly restoration and development of Intramuros as a monument to the Hispanic period of the Philippine history. The mission of Intramuros is to protect and conserve the historical and cultural value and significance of Intramuros while advancing and guiding urban development within, and contributing to the strengthening of the Filipinos' national identity and sense of belonging and pride. Intramuros Administration envisioned Intramuros as a model urban site of national historical and cultural heritage, sustaining people and life systems within, and contributing to national cultural and socio-economic progress. Did you know? The Intramuros Administration was designed on April 10, 1979, and it is tasked to rebuild, redevelop, administer, and preserve remaining buildings, structures, and fortification of Intramuros. One good example of this is San Agustin Church, where this church, together with a monastery nearby, was the only structure left standing after World War II and is actually the third version of the church, which survived several natural disasters through time. The Philippine Commission on Sports Scuba Diving is under the Republic Act No. 9593 or the Tourism Act of 2009. The Philippines Commission on Sports Scuba Diving is a tourism organization under the Department of Tourism in the Philippines, and it is mandated to promulgate programs and projects geared to the development of the country as a premier diving area in Asia, and to formulate rules, regulations, safety, and standard and operating procedure to implement the development of sports scuba diving. The PCSSD manages many of the country's compression chambers and carries out routine spot checks on breathing air quality from the compressors of its members. This agency is mandated to ensure the safety of both domestic and foreign diving enthusiasts and to promote the Philippines as a premier dive destination. Scuba has been determined as a key tourism product in the National Tourism Development Plan of the Philippines. Did you know that the Philippine Commission on Sports Scuba Diving Accreditation will help us monitor the scuba diving industry and give us the statistics, facts, and the like to harness these assets? We endeavor to use this advantage as a driver for economic growth and as an avenue for employment of locals and nation building. Our next reporter will discuss the National Parks Development Committee and Nayong Pilipino.
Let us talk about the National Parks Development Committee. National Parks Development Committee was created by virtue of Executive Order Number 30, dated on January 14, 1963, and on January 20, 1987, pursuant to Executive Order Number 120, and National Parks Development Committee became an attached agency of the Ministry of Tourism, which is now the Department of Tourism, and its main office is located in the old planetarium building, P. Burgos Drive, Rizal Park, Luneta, Manila. They invested in arts and culture that filled the parks with family-friendly events and socio-cultural activities with the hopes of strengthening families and community bonds. It also discussed the major goals and programs that the committee wanted to develop and sustain, such as development and maintenance of assigned parks and maintenance of peace and order in the assigned parks, promotional, recreational, socio-cultural, and educational programs, and some activities. Did you know that these parks are maintained and developed, such as Rizal Park, Paco Park in Manila, and the Pook ni Maria Makiling Forest Park in Los Baños, Laguna, and other parks may be assigned in National Parks Development Committee. Now, let us talk about the Nayong Pilipino. Nayong Pilipino was conceptualized by the First Lady Imelda Marcos to be a cultural theme park showcasing Filipino culture. The Nayong Pilipino was to celebrate the diversity and creativity of the Filipino people as a social and economic force for the growth of the country. On November 16, 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos signed Presidential Decree No. 37, which created the Nayong Pilipino Foundation. Did you know that the park was divided into 6 different zones of regions? Number 1, the Ilocos region. The Ilocos region featured a house modeled after the Spanish colonial type houses in Vigan. The second one is Cordillera region, where you can see the creation of the iconic rice terraces was the main draw, and there was also a traditional Ifugao village. The third one is the Tagalog region, where they featured the Emilio Aguinaldo houses, a Bulacan house, a bamboo house, and the Paite house. The third one is Bicol region, and there was a Spanish house in the Bicol region. But of course, the main attraction was much smaller version of the famed Mayon volcano, as well as the ruins of Cagsawa Church. The third one is the Visayas region. There was a replica of Magellan's Cross and a boating lagoon that overlooked Bohol Province Chocolate Hills. And the last one is the Mindanao region, where they featured a mosque, a traditional Samal house, a princess house, and a Datu house that contained a collection of ethnographic and cultural artifacts from the country's second largest island. Our next reporter will give us more information and about the political law. Let us talk about the National Parks Development Committee. National Parks Development Committee was created by virtue of Executive Order No. 30, dated on January 14, 1963, and on January 20, 1987, pursuant to Executive Order No. 120, and National Parks Development Committee became an attached agency of the Ministry of Tourism, which is now the Department of Tourism, and its main office is located in the old Planetarium Building, P. Burgos Drive, Rizal Park, Luneta, Manila. They invested in arts and culture that filled the parks with family-friendly events and socio-cultural activities with the hopes of strengthening families and community bonds. It also discussed the major goals and programs that the committee wanted to develop and sustain, such as development and maintenance of assigned parks and maintenance of peace and order in the assigned parks, promotional, recreational, socio-cultural, and educational programs, and some activities. Did you know that these parks are maintained and developed, such as Rizal Park, Paco Park in Manila, and the Pook ni Maria Makiling Forest Park in Los Baños, Laguna, and other parks may be assigned in National Parks Development Committee. Now, let us talk about the Nayong Pilipino. Nayong Pilipino was conceptualized by the First Lady Imelda Marcos to be a cultural theme park showcasing Filipino culture. The Nayong Pilipino was to celebrate the diversity and creativity of the Filipino people as a social and economic force for the growth of the country. On November 16, 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos signed Presidential Decree No. 37, which created the Nayong Filipino Foundation. Did you know that the park was divided into 6 different zones of regions? Number 1, the Ilocos region. The Ilocos region featured a house modeled after the Spanish colonial type houses in Vigan. The second one is Cordillera region, where you can see the creation of the iconic rice terraces was the main draw, and there was also a traditional Ifugao village. The third one is the Tagalog region, where they featured the Emilio Aguinaldo houses, a Bulacan house, a bamboo house, and the Paite house. The third one is Bicol region, and there was a Spanish house in the Bicol region. But of course, the main attraction was much smaller version of the famed Mayon volcano, as well as the ruins of Cagsawa Church. The third one is the Visayas region. There was a replica of Magellan's Cross and a boating lagoon that overlooked Bohol Province, Chocolate Hills. And the last one is the Mindanao region, where they featured a mosque, a traditional Samal house, a princess house, and a Datu house that contained a collection of ethnographic and cultural artifacts from the country's second largest island. So our next reporter will give us more information about labor law.
Now we will discuss the labor law. The Labor Code of the Philippines is a legal code that determines all employment practices and labor relations in the Philippines. This is to help protect employees and employers while ensuring that neither is subject to unfair treatment or exploitation. And here are sets of rules that make up the Labor Code. First, working hours in the Philippines. No employees in the Philippines must work for over 8 hours a day. Second, employees except from completing working hours. According to Article 82 of Labor Code, states that employees under all establishments and undertakings need to complete a certain set of working hours, except government employees, managerial employees, field personnel, family members of the employer who are dependent for support, domestic help, individuals who provide personal service to others, workers given wages or salaries based on the Secretary of Labor regulations. Third is meal times. The Labor Code dictates that all employers must get no less than 60 minutes break to finish their meals. The usual time during day shift is 12 p.m. Fourth is night shift. In case an employer requires a worker to work during the night anytime between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., he must be paid a minimum wage 10% over above his regular wage for each hour. Fifth is rules for overtime work. Since the maximum work hours allowed in the Philippines are 8 hours, in case an employee works for longer, he must be paid extra. This includes additional compensation of 25% of his regular work wage. It is essential to note that an employee can be asked to perform overtime work in a national or local emergency cases determined by the state or if the business is at stake.
The next topic is the rules for undertime work. According to the Article 88 of Labor Code, undertime work on a business day will not influence overtime work on any given day. This means that if an employee leaves work early, he cannot be made to work overtime the next day to make up for those hours. This is because the rate of overtime per hour is higher than the missed hours. The Labor Code also states that in case an employee receives permission to take leave on a specific day, his employer is still required to pay for any additional compensation or overtime work done previously or in the future. Now for the leaves. All employers are subject to a weekly rest day of a full 24 hours after every 6 consecutive working days. The specific rest day can mutually decided. However, an employee cannot argue his case if he prefers to be given a rest day based on religious event or holiday. all workers reserve the right of holiday pay. This will include his regular daily wage. In case they are also called into work on a holiday, they must be paid twice their regular rate. Now we move on to the provisions under the Labor Code of the Philippines. In Article 83, normal hours of work, the normal hours of work of an employee shall not exceed 8 hours a day. In Article 139, minimum employee age, no child below 15 years old of age shall be employed, except when he works directly under the sole responsibility of his parents or guardian, and his employment does not in any way interfere with his schooling. In Article 92, when employer may not require a work on rest day, the employer may require his employees to work on any day in case of actual impending emergencies caused by serious accident, fire, flood, typhoon, earthquake, epidemic, or other disaster or calamity to prevent loss of life and property or imminent danger to public safety. In cases of urgent work to be performed on a machinery, equipment, or installation to avoid serious loss which employer would otherwise suffer. In the event of abnormal pressure of work due to special circumstances where the employer cannot ordinarily be expected to resort to other measures. Where the nature of work requires continuous operations and the stoppage of work may result into irreparable injury or loss to the employer.
We have Article 95, Right to Serve Incentive Leave. Every employee who has rendered at least 1 year of service shall be entitled to a yearly service incentive leave of 5 days with pay. This provision shall not apply to those who are already enjoying the benefit, herein provided those enjoying vacation leave with pay of at least 5 days and those employed in establishments regularly employing less than 10 employees or in establishments exempted from granting this benefit by the Secretary of Labor and Employment after considering the viability or financial condition of such establishment. Under the just causes of termination, we have its elements. The first one is serious misconduct. This is the employee's improper actions like sexual harassment, forgery, and physical assault. The next one is willful disobedience of a lawful order, an employee's intentional disregard or refusal to obey orders. The next one is gross and habitual neglect of duty, repeated failure to perform one's duty. And the next one is fraud, an act of dishonesty by an employee who has been put in charge of the employer's money and property amounts. Next one is willful breach of trust and commission of a crime against a person of the employer or any immediate member of his family or his duly authorized representatives, and other analogous causes. We have the responsibilities of workers, and the first one is to personally perform the work in the time, place, and conditions as agreed upon. Next is to follow the instructions of the worker's boss. Next is to avoid any issues or problems at the workplace that will endanger everyone at the workplace. And the next one is to follow the rules at work. We also have the responsibilities of employer. The first one is to make a work agreement with the employee, agreeing on conditions, time, and place. Next is to follow up with employee on agreed terms. Next is to supervise and provide suitable conditions of work so workers have security, health, and dignity. The next one is to honor terms of payment, to register and pay into Social Security for the employee, to take care of the well-being of staff and qualified dependents such as wife, husband, and children. And lastly, to agree on a performance contract. Now we are going to talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have the right to freedom from sexual harassment, which is supported by Republic Act No. 7877, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. Next is right to a safe and healthy workplace, which is supported by Article 162, Safety and Health Standards, and DOLE's Occupational Safety and Health Standards, amended 1989. We also have hours of work, which is supported by Article 83, Normal Hours of Work. It shall not exceed 8 hours a day, and Article 87, Overtime Work.
Female labor rights in the Philippines ensure that equal opportunities are given to both men and women employees in the workplace. Under the Labor Code of the Philippines, special protection and safety of women need to be considered by employers. Health and safety of women. The right to health and safety ensures that every woman is provided adequate working conditions to ensure the optimum health of female workers. Employers are also required to ensure that safety regulations are being followed and no woman is subjected to an unfair workload. Protection against discrimination or harassment. Women in the Philippines are also protected against workplace harassment or discrimination. Women are to be provided a culturally sensitive platform to report any cases of mistreatment, harassment, or discrimination. Equal compensation. Men and women at the workplace must be given equal pay for the same work. Even if the nature of the job is not exactly identical but similar, the compensation must be equal. Maternity leave. Women are entitled to receive maternity leave regardless of their civil status. The period of maternity leave is 45 days, during which women are entitled to receive full compensation. Female employees are required to take maternity leave in a continuous manner, either before or after the actual delivery of the child. Annual leave. Women are entitled to take their specified annual leave if they want, without any restrictions or limitations. However, the employer is responsible for approving and compensating the employee to the extent of the leave as per the law. Health insurance. Women in the Philippines are required to have health insurance in case they fall sick or end up disabled during their course of employment. The employer or any third party does not have the right to deny health insurance to working women in the Philippines.
Now we have come to an end of our presentation. I hope you all learned a lot about political law and labor law because as a student, it is really important to have knowledge in these two laws, especially in labor law because someday we will become an employee and we will know our rights as an employee. Dahil sabi nga nila, iba ang may alam. Hanggang sa muli, salamat at paalam.